One of the learnings of is going back to shit I didn't like from these past agencies is like the chest beady, we're right, mic drop, buy it or don't, pay for it again if you don't like it, is just like that's something of the past in my opinion. I think it's arrogant creative. And I was trained that way. I was trained to do that.
Well, welcome, Mike Perry.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I'm looking forward to jumping into these questions that we have. And I know we talked about how you feel like you're living your dream. And you had mentioned that you always had the entrepreneurial itch, even from your first job. And so, what were some of the turning points or breakthroughs that led to you finally taking the leap and starting your own studio, Tavern?
Yeah, I kind of like realized I like always wanted that, even in like middle school and high school where I was constantly selling stuff and trying to start little businesses. So it's been this kind of repeat process of like little businesses, see if it works and so on. And then so I entered into my first job at NBC Sports. I was in-house as rather than an agency, and then after that I left, tried to start a studio. Did not work. I did
Okay.
not have enough knowledge or education or know-how, where missing a lot of the pieces. And I think throughout my entire career to this point has been I work somewhere, I gain some knowledge, think I have all of the pieces put together, and then try and make that jump, and it's way too early. It just doesn't work out. And that kind of happened in between nearly every single job I've ever had to some varying degree. But I think really after working at NBC Sports and then at a bunch of agencies, more with some more with an advertising background, some more with a creative design background, and then bookending my career, kind of ending in-house, doing more strategic work, not being a designer or specific creative at TikTok. It's a collection of all of those things to where it was the breaking point. And then it almost, there was nowhere else to go, I felt. Right. And it was like, this has to be the time that it works. Now I kind of understand all of these facets of the job. So I think that was really the breaking point, and that led to starting Tavern, and 3.5-ish years in now, and there's no looking back. Like I can't go get a job at this point. I think I'm doomed to own startups or run this forever.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that you felt that drive to start your own business from a very young age. I've heard some people think that entrepreneurs are born, and so when you got to that point that you felt like this was really the only option, would you say that that was your intuition when you said you're feeling it, or was there something else going on there?
Yeah, we could say that. I do think, like, if I look at all of my experience and just like different roles within all of the businesses that I was an employee of, it's pretty much all the bullshit is now stripped away. So I just like saw where all of these pitfalls were. Some naive takes that I've learned my lesson, but like generally speaking, that there's a lot of fat and process for no reason, politicking for no reason, just a lot of bullshit in all of these agencies that I've worked in. And, to no fault, I just think it's the machine that kind of was built over time. A lot of them, none of them were startups. A lot of them were, all of them were nearly 15 plus years old, if not 30 to 40. Definitely not startups anymore. And so with that, I think comes some bureaucracy, some politicking, just a lot of just crap having to go on. And then, serving different masters as well at some of these places. Some of them were owned by Omnicom, WPP. So it's not really, the agenda wasn't necessarily set by the business itself. It was set by the larger business. And so with all, and that dictates, business model, and business model dictates creative output. So there's, a lot goes into all of this. And as I was in every job, I felt extremely uncomfortable because I was like, this doesn't make sense. And everyone's like, it has to make sense. And you're like, yeah, but like break this down. Like, and this is the graphic designer, in some of these jobs, just the lowly graphic designer, middleweight graphic designer being like, whoa, your business model doesn't make sense. And they're like, okay, bud, go back to your seat. Like, and so it was a lot of that over time to where like, yeah, I think I learned all the I learned all the hard part for sure. I don't want to minimize that. I learned a lot from all of these places. How to do the job, how to manage people, how to manage clients, how to speak to clients, how to speak to people internally, which frankly I wasn't great at in the beginning because thought I was a hotshot designer that knew everything, right? There's a lot of like growing up that I learned throughout these jobs that I think is valuable for other people to take away. So like it's good to still have a job, even if you have that entrepreneurial mindset. Like there's a lot to be learned. But again, seeing all that bullshit and being like, I feel like I could save time, which time equals money or more projects, and we can make this a more efficient machine moving forward that actually delivers on great creative versus everything else that goes into it without getting too much into the weeds. And it's true. I mean, like, it's funny. It was probably like year like 1.5 where we were fairly still small, only a few employees, and an old creative director of mine, we were talking and they were like, yeah, and we weren't courting by any means, but definitely talking. I was like, yeah, you could come on. It's great over here. And they're like, is it great though? You must work so hard and there must be so many hours and late night and like just the like startup cultural lore that she was talking about. And I was like, I broke it down, the place that we worked together, 80+% of my day was politicking. So if you remove that, you have a lot of your day. So like, no one's working late. We are working hard, but not late and not long because we've set up systems where we don't have to deal with nonsense. And I think that's kind of like, that's why I can never go back somewhere is like, I've eliminated the nonsense and I see when the nonsense starts to pop up and we can squash it really easily because it's just a waste of time. It's a waste of time because what we want to be doing is great work at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And when you say great work, I know we were talking about what kind of work you do at Tavern. Can you jump into that and talk about what work you do and why you've chosen to go this route in specializing in this particular area?
Yeah, so we focus on food, bev, hospitality, and sports. All things that a great tavern has to offer. But really, my background and a lot of our employees' backgrounds have been at agencies that specialize in F&B and hospitality. And so our bench is super, super deep in terms of knowledge and understanding that. And we really, really understand these categories from a, business level, which I think is most important. And from an offerings perspective, it's everything. So my background is, I hinted at it earlier, but it's all over the shop. It was in-house. It was in social at TikTok. It was in entertainment and sports at NBC Sports, but also my agency background. Some of those agencies were more ad agency focused or actual ad agencies, and then some were more branding and design agency focused, and even a pack specialized one in the mix there, which is like pure play pack. We weren't allowed to do anything else. I only lasted 4 months there. It was boring. But really having this full 360 approach to brands. And so what we do, everything we do is solving the brand's business problem with the brand at the heart of it. So the output, yes, packaging, visual identity systems, above the line advertising is kind of like core offerings, the kind of basic, easy to tell my mom what we do offerings, but really brands come to us when we work very closely with them and we try to get ingrained within their teams so that we can be solving their business problems with the brand at the heart of everything. So that output could be a giant pigeon floating down the Hudson River, which is what we did for New York City Football Club, an MLS team who was trying to gain fans and disrupt Club World Cup. It doesn't have to be just a rebrand. So a little bit different, 360 approach is kind of the old school term of it, but very much we treat every client, we try to solve their business problems by putting brand at the heart of everything.
Okay, and I understand that you're very passionate about that old school approach versus at least large brands leaning on social and email. Can you talk about that?
Yes. I hate contemporary advertising in terms of like digital
Hey, that's a
advertising.
powerful word.
Hate it.
What-
Hate it. I think it's a tax that that's stolen from Scott Galloway, but it's a tax that's put onto the brand, where we're paying Meta an extreme tax so we can please use their algorithm. And and it's not just Meta, it's TikTok too. Having worked there, it is very much pay to play, and I think that goes into all areas. There's so much clutter in general. From an advertising standpoint, I can't pump my gas without getting bombarded with a bunch of 6 seconds string together that are so obnoxious, right? Like, in the same way, even traditional radio ads go, or just literally shout. We're working on a bunch of radio work for Sizzler, so we still do traditional old school advertising, but even like the way that we've optimized promoting a lot of these traditional ads like radio, it's literally shouting, and it's as loud as humanly possible. It's wild. And I think that's with digital too. I mean, the amount of newsletters and Substacks that I am subscribed to and do not read as much as I want to read them, and I actually want that content, is insane. So I think taking this, like, whatever the like best in class approach is, and this goes across the board to all of our brands, but like, and our clients, is like, best in class is not best in class for someone who's trying to disrupt and trying to beat the competition. So I think how we approach things is very much taking that into consideration. If I don't know, Old Spice came to us today, I'd say, yeah, probably we were going to run some traditional stuff because we have the ad spend of P&G, right? And that's fine. You'd still do things and try and disrupt within that, but it depends on scale. But a lot of our brands are really in that like middle tier, upper middle tier to upper tier level of brand and size of company. And we really specialize in the like upper middle tier, like pushing them into that mass market, that high end level of brand, and from a sales perspective and also marketing perspective. And to do that, you're physically, if you're in that category, there's no way you're going to be able to outspend P&G, Johnson & Johnson, Unilever. So you need to do something different, and you need to approach this in a slightly non-traditional way, or a creative brand-led way.
Okay, so it sounds like you have a challenge in front of you to really cut through all that noise and make it successful for your clients to essentially get their brand out there and connect with the right consumers. And so now having your own space to play in at Tavern, how liberating is that to be able to bring ideas and not have to deal with the politics and all that 80% nonsense that you felt like was at other agencies?
It's a dream. It's the absolute best. A great example is I remember I was I'm gonna try not to say the brands or the agency I was at. It's a very large agency, if someone wants to lurk me on LinkedIn. And it was also a very large vodka company. And I remember I was in it was like week 2 of this job, and I got brought on as creative director. And you get brought on, and when people hire you, and I'm sure this is true for almost every position, they're like, oh, we love your expertise. Your thinking is gonna really shape how we move this business moving forward, and yada yada yada. And you're like, sick, you're bought in. I can't wait. I can't wait to start. I have so many ideas. And so we're like, week 2 in talking about ideas for this, and I was like, and we need to start attacking the ad agency because they're selling shit work to this company, and they're not actually driving what you just said our position was, and yada yada yada. And I was told we need to stay in our lane. We're only a branding agency, and I went ballistic. But like, that doesn't happen anymore. Now I'm in the initial conversations with these brands. We bring these brands on, and that, I mean, not only is it good for business because we're heading this off at the start. And start to educate the client and change their way of thinking to begin with. It's a whole different thing. So it is great for business, but it's also like, I don't have to deal with bullshit of a strategy director telling me to stay in my lane, which is the most insane thing ever. And we won't cut this, but she's going to know exactly who she is, who's still a good friend. But it's insane. Like, why are we playing these politics? We're wasting that brand's money by having that meeting and by politicking this alone, and we're just not solving problems. And like, yeah, this is a dream, but like the dream is it is to solve problems creatively, and it's really fun, and that's what like gets us all, everyone at the studio, out of bed in the morning, and that's what we want to be doing. I don't want to be having arguments about like why we should be making great creative. You know, it doesn't make sense. So we just don't have to anymore. And now we have so much more time in the day to truly be solving that creative problem.
And so, for those listeners who are like, that sounds great, I would love that, but starting my own business is too risky. Did you ever experience that thought as you were going out on your own?
Yeah, I'm still experiencing that as we as every day goes by. I Yes, and I talk about I have mentioned this to you, but I speak to a lot of students and a lot of like young people. I feel like everyone under the age of 25, very similar to myself, was like, all right, I worked in an agency, I'm over it. Let me go. How do I start my own agency? And I do really believe like you got to learn and you got to get shit from a strategy director who's telling you to stay in your lane for a little bit longer, because I think it makes you stronger ultimately. But it is, because it is scary. I mean, it's kind of that the overnight success takes 20 years in the making kind of idiom, or whatever. It is that, and I think that that's true. I remember someone asked me, it was like year 2 or so, they're like, where are you getting all these clients? How'd you guys do this? Like, you just seemingly popped up. And I was like, every client that we've had, even still to date, goes back a minimum of 8 years that I had on roster at different points. We were extremely close, if not actual friends. People who text each other on the weekend type of friends, whether, it's still a client relationship, but a very, very close client relationship, and some legitimately actual friends. That's built over time. This is a relationship game. So like it is hard. It's fun when it works, but I do think like there should be like a bit of a red flag of like you need to make sure that your connections are in order. And so like, but if that's the case, which is the case for a lot of people, and I think a lot of creatives, I think you're golden then, because that's what happened with us. Like it is easier when you are focusing on relationships and on the people that you've garnered over time. And especially if you've been in similar type businesses over time, it feels easy to me, but I hesitate to give that advice and say it's super easy, because I do feel like it was a lot of build up over time to get to that ease. I don't know if I answered your question actually there though.
Yeah, no, I
Trying to
think
be
that.
motivating, but also, you know, there's a bit of upfront work that I learned the hard way, trying and stopping and starting so many times, of like, I didn't do the upfront work to actually launch this. I just thought like, I'm good, so I'm going to go be famous studio designer. And it's like, no, that ain't it. It's all the facets of the business. And you have to really like the business, I think. I think that was the thing I learned, which I already liked, but I think I learned the most, is like, you have to want to run a business, not run a graphic design agency. I think that's what I try and tell like all the younger folks too, of like, go do it, but you just know like you better give 95% of your thought goes into running that business, and the 5% is the creative and managing and working with other creatives to kind of roll that out.
Yeah, no, I think that's great information and feedback. And of course, everybody has their own journey. I've heard of people who start a business at 25 and everybody's in their 20s and they kind of figure it out along the way.
Totally.
And then you clearly were,
AKQA.
what's that?
AKQA is a prime example of that. It's one of the major ad agencies. That guy did it, I think, at like 22, and like they are still. I have buddies who work there. They're still sick today.
Oh, that's great. That's a great point. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, that's one story, right? And then your story is that you felt that drive early to start your own business. You thought, oh, I know what I need. And then what made you, when you kind of came out that first, second, even potentially third time and tried it, what made you realize, you know what, actually, I don't know everything, so I'm going to go back to a full-time job?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay.
I think it was just money, most likely, right? Like it was like, well, we're going to keep scraping by here, or can I go get a job and like pick up some new pieces and knowledge as we go? And also connections, because I knew, like, very easily knew, like, I one job, which I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but like I was at JKR, which I was working on Budweiser Global and US and ABI and all these really like cool beer brands. And I, worked there for a really long time, kind of figured everything out. And once I kind of get the knowledge and I know how it all works, I'm a bit over it because I do like to continue to learn and hop to learn. But I literally left that job and took a job at Design Bridge strictly on the fact that Pabst Blue Ribbon was a client and I really wanted to work on PBR. That was it. It was kind of a stupid move, to be honest. Like, if that didn't work out, like, you're changing jobs only for a client. But that is one of those learnings, right? Where it's like, well, in between one of my jobs, it's like, well, I'm not getting the clients I want. Like, I don't want to be working on these like tiny small brands. So like, I need to go to a bunch of different agencies and chase some clients around so that I can get a mix of those bigger clients. So I do think it was part of that. It was like the understanding of there's more to be learned, right or wrong. And then clients, like it doesn't work without great clients. I mean, and I just think that's true in general of all agencies. If you don't have very tight relationships with your clients, you're an executor and you're not making great work. Like, the reason why we make great work on all of our projects is because our clients are heavily involved in that, and very early and often, and we're not telling them what they should do. It's very much a collaboration. I think learning that over time, or thinking it is just selling them design, is when it failed. And when I kind of like took the relationship approach and actually ingrained that, and the collaborative approach and ingrained it into the workflow, is when it was like, oh, this is kind of easy. Not easy, the work to be done, but like easy in terms of like ease of relationship and building and like making better stuff. So I think a mix of that over time, of like learnings, understanding that, well, I tried to apply what I learned previously to this, and like it failed real fast, like pretty rapidly. Like, the project just went haywire, and you're like, well, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe it is important to have an account director on there. The designer's like, I can do this all myself, but no. And then things like that, and then also brands, like the level of brands and category, right? Like, when I was doing smaller and these failed things, I was taking on everything. I didn't niche. I didn't hone. Money. We just need money in, like, it needs to survive. And actually that's, the kiss of death ultimately. That's why I think we are so successful currently, as we are extremely niched in the categories because we're good at it, and people want to pay for that expertise, and that's what we like to do.
Mm-hmm. And so when you talked about the ease, I really appreciate the description of ease, because people are like, is it easy? Is it hard to have your own business? And your description of ease is to get into that collaboration with the client. Now, did you know that when you started Tavern, or was that a learning curve as you started Tavern?
I think I figured it out in past agencies, when you're like,
Okay.
oh yeah, if you like, treat this relationship like an actual relationship, you're going to have better work come out of it. I do think that was a turning point. Like, and I'm embarrassed to say it. I guess it was like a maturing point where, like, very early on in my career, it's like, no, you're a marketer. I'm a designer. I'm a brand person. I know what I'm talking about. You pay me for that. And that is just, like, obviously not the case. That is very immature in behavior, but, like, hard to learn. Like, and this wasn't just like me, by the way. This was like major agencies who are big award-winning agencies. You can do the math again on the LinkedIn, like, who are telling you this is how you approach creative. And I was funny. I was talking to a client today who was saying that about some of their rosters too, where it's like, yeah, we just get such pushback on when we say, like, oh, we want it this way after a first round, and they just push back, and so brutally push back. And that, again, one of the learnings of going back to shit I didn't like from these past agencies is like the chest beaty, we're right, mic drop, buy it or don't, pay for it again if you don't like it, is just like, that's something of the past, in my opinion. I think it's arrogant creative. And I was trained that way. I was trained to do that, and we did it for a while, and I learned pretty rapidly when I was I'm not in a room full of 20 people who are also doing that towards the client, that you got no clout. It's not going to work. And it doesn't, again, it all comes back to, is this solving the business problem? This is a bit where we are here to solve business problems through marketing, advertising, and design and brand. If it's not, who cares? So what, we get an award? Like, that's not what that doesn't get us out of bed, because they're all rigged and nonsensical anyway. We're here to move the needle. We're here to improve the client's bottom line and make great creative in doing that.
Well, it's great that you have a very clear objective, and it sounds like your clients are receptive to the way that you work more collaboratively. So back to your journey, I was interested in how when you left the one company to go for the agency to work on that larger brand, you felt like it might have been a stupid move or maybe a bold move. Where did you get that idea? Because it sounded like you were listening to your intuition. Did someone say that that was a risky idea to just leave to work on a brand, or?
No, and everything is very, I mean, my entire career jumps have been extremely calculated. I think one, driven by money. Obviously, we want to make money. And that's like a kind of money is a dirty word even in design these days still, where it's like, no, you do it because you love it. And it's like, yeah, I love it and I'm good at it, but like I do believe all designers and strategists and account people and everyone in the business should get paid properly. And like these big cool agencies with a bunch of awards will take advantage of you and will pay you less so that you can work on cool brands. So there is a bit of that like brand hopping to get to the cool project, or the project that can turn into that. PBR was a downtrodden brand in that time. I think it was like 2019-ish, right? Like no one gave a shit about PBR. They had their heyday many years ago. And I love really kind of like beaten, forgotten brands. So I'm never hopping, to Nike, right? Like it's already done. That's boring to me. Like U-Haul's I always say is my dream brand. Like that one is like a pile of crap right now, but has so much potential and could be so cool. So like, yes. And then was it calculated? Absolutely. So a real peek behind the curtain, throughout many of my agencies, I've always worked on Diageo, their innovation and their brand team. So the previous 4 agencies before going to DesignBridge for PBR I was on Budweiser, but I was also, from a beer perspective, but I was also on Diageo doing a bunch of innovation spirits and like some of their core whiskeys and whatnot, going back multiple agencies. So I knew that going to DesignBridge, their biggest client at the time was Diageo out of North America. So I knew they were going to hire me because I had Diageo experience, because it's like pretty, apples to apples. That's how people hire, for better or for worse. So I was like, if PBR sucks, at least I got Diageo still. It's just different brands than Diageo. It's not going to interrupt my kind of trajectory of spirits and alcohol design, which I love, and that was kind of obviously my favorite category to work on. So it was calculated. There was a pay raise, an extreme pay raise. I knew that if everything failed, I'd still be working on spirits and in the same category and with the same clients, maintaining those relationships. But I'm trading one facet of my kind of week, which was like beer, to a different beer brand. So it was strategic in approach, knowing that like if it went horrible, it would still very much work out in my favor. And worst case scenario, I'm making more money, I leave in a year or two and hop somewhere else.
And so how did that work out for you?
Good. I actually stayed there the longest, which is funny, because it was a bit, at that time, it was a shit show when I got there. And I think everyone would probably agree. Like, the business was run correctly because it was an account-led business. And the MD there she left as well more recently, but she from the entire time I was there was very good. And so from an account, and strategic side of things, that business was running really efficiently. I think the creative, they had a bunch of offices. There was London and Asia and whatnot. It was running really well elsewhere, but it was just kind of a pool of designers that I walked into. It was a couple creative directors and a pool of designers. And no organizational structure whatsoever. So we're like fighting over designers every day, and talk about like adding politics into it. It was just a free for all. There's no process from a creative standpoint. And so, and I, that was a fun challenge too, and a really good learning working at that place of like, okay, let's everyone like stop. Let's put a stake in the ground. We're going to develop teams. We're going to develop hubs, and kind of built the creative studio in that studio and different teams there. And then I learned over time as I was, having to take on more and getting more projects, I started building, bunch of mini teams underneath me, which was really great to actually physically do, right? Like I worked within them, and I've seen them, and I kind of influenced it at other places, even at a director level, but I never actually like charted my own group of people, so much so that I think I had like 12 people under me in different kind of like two mini teams that then also could work efficiently between each other. So highly technical kind of like management stuff that you never get taught. That's also why I think people should work at agencies or at clients or anywhere, work at a place to where they're forced to manage, because it's a lot better to get paid to manage people and mess it up than it is to pay, second guess, and then be like, am I over hiring, under hiring? Am I putting these people together? Are they the right team? Whatever. So yeah, it was good in the end. The learning to manage really was it was a huge takeaway there.
Yeah, no, I had asked how that experience worked out. So
Oh,
it
great.
sounds like it worked out very well. You got management experience. You got to see the different teams. And did you help structure the teams
Yeah.
and drive that change within the organization?
Yeah, which was really cool. Yeah, and I know I'm shit talking on my friend, the strategy director there, who told me to stay in my lane before she really knew me. But like, over even her, that everyone was really great. It was such a positive group of people, unlike any other agency I met. It was just like a good bunch, which you don't get, not in New York, right? Like, yes, you do get it every now and then, but like walking into a major agency like that, it's gotta break down some walls. It takes a little while, but like, no, everyone was so lovely. So I think that was really part of it too, where it made managing a bit easier. A bunch of politics, don't get me wrong, a bunch of nonsense, but the human beings were lovely, and I think that makes a huge difference. And so it was a great experience. It was really fun. I think because maybe they were so nice, I got to, bully them a little bit into making the structure my way a little bit more and faster overall. I was It's a British-run agency. Not everyone was British, but it was very much British values. And I've worked at multiple British agencies, and everyone says I'm way too aggro to be working at these places, because I'm just like, no, like clean it up. Let's get back to work. And so yeah, I structured that, and so much so that I think it was the best part. I had that was almost 4 years, and zero redundancies under my team, and that was including the strategist that would like be part of that team that I wasn't directly managing. So no redundancies, only growth. Every single person had at least one position bump, so multiple pay rises, but position bump. And then when I left, it was me and two DDs with their own teams there, and I was like, I'm leaving, but you have to make them both creative directors when I leave, and they need to like keep their teams and maintain that structure. And that happened, less than a month later, which I was still sending probably very inappropriate emails and texting with some higher ups there, forcing their hand into still working at the company while I left. But I think that was important. Like it was really like, it was a great experience. Everyone was great. And, creative was good, obviously, but like that management was such, if I didn't have that, which like I wanted to just start a studio instead of going to that place. If I didn't have that, we might not be talking right now. I don't know if I would have lasted that long without or it would have cost me a ton of money to hire, fire, not have my cool redundancy numbers, zero redundancy number stat, which I think is very important from a management standpoint. Like it would have been hard. It would have been really hard without the knowledge. So I got to learn on someone else's time.
That's great.
That's
And that
cool.
all was a product of you having your eye on that particular brand, PBR. So that's wonderful.
So yeah, it paid off. I got lucky.
That's cool. See, you don't know where a move is going to take you when your intuition is telling you to make a move. You might think it's for one reason, but it could open up a whole door of possibility. I mean, that's just a perfect example.
Yeah.
So, you had said that you were punching above your weight in a lot of previous roles and never felt really satisfied. Can you share more about that experience and how it shaped your decision to go out on your own?
Yeah, I think as looking back, like I always thought, like I could do this better. Like, what are you guys talking about? I didn't. I fought with creative directors all of the, when I was more junior, being like, this doesn't make sense. Like, why? Like, why? But I didn't know. I didn't have the knowledge and experience. I now being a creative director, I know exactly why some of them made those stupid decisions. Frankly, is whatever, right? Like I have kind of a better understanding of the wider business, but I never fit in that kind of way. But I think again, looking back, it's I think because I had more of a business mindset and a broader view mindset of where I was caring about more than what I was doing. We were chatting before, but I heard this analogy recently of like cannons versus ammo. So like the cannons and the cannonballs. Like I was always the cannonball when really I should have been the cannon or the person, I don't know, the captain general in charge of all of the cannons, like, and that was the tension point to where I never felt like I fit in because I'm like, well, why are we only focusing on like the job to be done? If we have a project, it's a big project, everyone's excited about it. Why are we only going to just show them, packaging for Budweiser? Why are we only just going to show them the one package that we think that they should pick? Shouldn't we consider how this goes into store, into out of home? And, and then they say, stay in your lane. And then they say, that's an investment cost. We need to be efficient in how we run our individual teams. And you shouldn't be working on anything that wasn't in the brief. And there was just always like, no, stay in your lane kind of mentality. No one ever, only one person ever said that to me, but like, is a lot of that when I was like, but you're not seeing the grander picture. By doing everything I'm saying is going to grow this account or business or agency or get us better PR or get us more awards or whatever. Or just make the client happy, which like we'll do all of those other things too. Like, and that's where I never fit in. I was always like thinking about more than just the task that I had at hand. Not to say I was being lazy and not addressing, the work that I had to do. It was just like questioning more than doing, which I think that's a great role in any designer, an account person, or a strategist or an ops director that we would hire too. Like I want them to be thinking that way. Like we're here for big ideas and for big thinking. So I think that's part of it. Is like I didn't fit in because I think I thought about way more than I was supposed to. And definitely in my younger years, no one wanted to hear my thoughts on how to make their business better as a junior designer.
And so when you're saying that you didn't fit in, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that don't feel like they fit in. Now looking back, you're like, that actually was a positive attribute for what I'm doing today. But how was that experience through the journey at that point and before you got to this point?
It sucked, I think, and I don't think I realized it. So, but I will say, like, it's a good thing. It's a good thing overall. It sucks now, but it's definitely a good thing if you are that person in that position. If you can see, I guess, the forest for the trees, really, would be the best analogy there. Like, that is going to benefit you later and long term. And I think just like maybe acknowledging it. I do think also, like, if some past jobs and whatever felt like absolutely horrid, which I'm sure is how a lot of people feel. But like, if you can just like stop, take a breath, and like look at the wider picture, and kind of identify that, I think you can learn from it. You can use that. You can use it to your advantage in a way that I did. I think it just took me longer to figure out. I think people can, if they identify, can use it faster to their advantage. I had a great executive creative director at an agency who, and this is more for creative, but I've applied it to kind of everything, where he was like, what's your agenda here? And I was like, in a specific project, but it also it can go for anything. And it's like, just pick your agenda. And I have my guys do this even now. It's like, what is your actual agenda? It has nothing to do with the business goal. It has not maybe nothing to do with the creative goal. It could be, I really want this one route to go through because I think it's the best one. I love. At the time it was like, I really want a 1960s Budweiser can because I think it's the answer. And this is my agenda. I can back it up with strategy. I can convince you till the cows come home, but like, you're never going to buy it. But my personal agenda is like, if you, I guess intuition, right? Like, that feels like the right answer. Push it, push it, push it. So the client doesn't want that, but you're going to keep pushing that. So you're going to give the client what their agenda is, because you know what their agenda is. They wrote the brief. They're pretty much telling you. And if you have a great account person, that account person will sniff it out pretty fast for you, if it's kind of hidden in the brief there. So there's two agendas. Work towards both of them. So deliver both. And I have my guys do this. It's like, you guys, I have an agenda here. I have an agenda with our clients that is different from what their agenda is, and you as the designer is also going to have that too. And it was really, that felt empowering too, in a place where you feel like you have no say and nothing, you know, being a designer on the design team who's getting dictated to you either from accounts, the client, or your creative director, and you feel as though you can't do anything. If you're able to pick that agenda and keep selling that agenda in addition to delivering what they want, you get a bit more empowerment back. And I will say, if you do look at what Budweiser looks like in the store today, it is extremely reminiscent of the 1960 can that I was referring to all the way back, that took years to get them to do, but was in the end the correct answer and took a lot of time. So, and then to your point, the intuition got you because it actually was the answer overall. It all kind of worked out. Mm-hmm. So I think picking an agenda can help you weather some storms when you're in a position feeling as though you can't fit in. Mm-hmm. And again, I have the guys do it in everything, but so that they feel like they're kind of making something new and contributing, so that they don't feel like they're being dictated to.
And do you feel like by picking an agenda and acknowledging that everybody else has an agenda, is that helpful with the collaborative approach that you work within?
Yeah, because then you start to uncover it. Because, like, I mean, even today, like, we have 4 clients on a call, and one kept repeating one type of word, and I was like, you clearly. And now, you know, I'm in a position where I'm like, is this what you're looking for? I think once you see that, it does make the collaboration easier, because you're not trying to convince them of something else. I see where you're going. I see what you're trying to get out of this. And I think it's a really powerful tool. And I think this is true for most of corporate American marketers. Like, they just want to get another promotion. So, like, me selling you the coolest, groundbreaking packaging design could get you a promotion, if that's what their boss's agenda is, or if that's what their KPI is. Let's be the ammo for the marketer. We're the ammo for you to get a promotion, and treat it that way. I bet you we can sneak in our agenda at the same time, right? I think it's a powerful tool overall, just from a business development standpoint as well, and a relationship building standpoint. Everyone has an agenda. I just don't think that they acknowledge it and say it out loud. You need to kind of figure it out and uncover it. But I think once you start doing it, it's a good, like, mental trick to be like, I'm working towards something. There's also a purpose then. So if you're in a shitty position or a shitty role, there's a purpose to get out of bed in the morning.
I like that. So you mentioned the importance of having the right people in the right roles, like bringing on your ops director, Amanda. So how have you built and scaled your team at Tavern? And what have you learned about effective leadership and delegation?
I've learned at other agencies, and I feel like it's one of those things that any manager, I mean, probably all the way up to Jack Welch, like all the way up the line to the craziest managers of all time, I think you kind of need to constantly be reminded to get out of the weeds. I had a great creative director, JB Hartford, who started to kind of get me into, this is a different agency, and she was like the kind of initial teacher. And no one really teaches you management, but she was one where it was like, you got to stop, dude. And her mantra that she gave me in like a review was like, get your hand off the mouse. Because I'd just like come over and I'd start, directing. I was a design director, and I'd start directing people, and I'd pick up their mouse and just start doing it for them. She's like, you can't touch their mouse anymore. You got to let them touch the mouse, which takes longer and is a lot harder and there's a lot more patience is involved. And like, you actually truly have to manage. And this is like on a lower level management, but that's a constant mantra still of like, take your hand off the mouse, stop, like delegate properly. I also, I have this wonderful career coach. She has this kind of chart of like this four box chart, and it's like urgent or not urgent, and then you have very hard, medium, easy, and sometimes you delegate. Sometimes you teach in that moment when it's not that urgent. You need to teach them, and sometimes you just have to do it yourself. And so, but it's not an individual level, which is what she really taught me. It's a situational level, which is like the best management advice I ever got. But, so every single project and project situation, you need to manage differently. So you can't I can't just, I got one project, I don't want to do it. Here's the whole project, go do it. It's like, well, they could do half of that. Maybe they could just be delegated to and do it, but they need to be guided and taught in some areas. And maybe it needs to go to a client and they don't talk to the clients as much. So maybe it just need to be a support's one of the quadrants too. Like you need to support them as they're talking to the client, not just like throwing people in the deep end. Cause I feel like delegation turns into just chucking them in the deep end. So it's a lot of that I did learn over time. And that was honed at Design Bridge with Tracy kind of guiding me and still today. So there's a bit of that. The team at Tavern, I try and instill that in everything we do with the guys, at least from the director up level. Amanda, who you mentioned, is my ops director, is my like right hand, which was my second hire. So I brought on a strategist when we first started, designer strategist. It worked. We were kind of in the weeds from an account perspective. And the reason I brought on Amanda is we have Burt's Bees, which was a relationship I garnered over time. I actually got at TikTok, so it was a short relationship, but over time, and it was great. Big company. Everyone knows what Burt's Bees is. A really cool project to do like their 40th anniversary merch and this collaboration and all of these things, like sick. Also, they're owned by Clorox, so I'm seeing money signs, and I'm like, yes, this is this year's project, and we're good. And I was on a call, and we were talking about scope, and I think I know everything. And this is like 6 months into Tavern, I guess. I think I know everything. And somehow, some clever brand manager spit me up and chewed me out, and I got off a call in less than 30 minutes with 20 grand less on that scope of work. And I was like, how did I just manage to lose 20K off the top? Which is just good negotiation. Any account manager probably wouldn't have had that. And I realized like hard and fast, like, oh, I need some account help. So I didn't know who to call. I called a couple friends and they were like, you should definitely hit up Amanda. She's kind of doing that role. So she is more of an ops director, but classically trained as an account director. So I brought her in. She then helped to build the account team, which has been growing over time. And now we're in like an incredible place. Basically, our entire agency is, for the most part, with the exception of design, is built of people we've all worked with in the past. So like our internal team relationships go way back, some like 12 years even. So yeah, bringing that in and kind of understanding where my faults are is where I really need to overdo. Frankly, advice for other people, I think you should overpay them all too. Like overpay in the roles that you aren't very good at, because you need to get the best person to fill that gap. You want the best people in the best roles. So that's kind of the approach we've taken in kind of growing that team, and also delegating, because then the delegation is then managed by the department heads who actually know what they're doing. It's removing the delegation from me, because normally I would, in a smaller studio, I just delegate the account work and hope that it happens. It's like, no, I hired the people who have done this for a very long time, this exact type of process, who are very good at it. And so I can help them manage their teams rather than me just like hope the account stuff gets done, which is, again, a crucial, 1/3 role of the agency as a whole, or of any project going smoothly.
To check out more inspiring stories of creatives going for their dreams, be sure to check out this video, because you can do it. I believe in you.